Hey, how's it going? I'm Mark. Welcome to the studio. And you're probably thinking, wait, is he sitting on the floor? Yeah, I'm sitting on the floor today to start this video because of a practical reason. There was only one place, and it was the floor in the studio here where I could set all of these things around me and you could see them in one shot. There aren't any other surfaces anywhere that were big enough to lay out all of these very giant plastic pieces. So let me talk about what we're going to do today. I've been spending the last several days, I guess it is, printing all of these parts. I think it's about 4 spools of filament altogether. It's hard to tell or count for sure because I used a lot of partial spools that were left over from other projects that were just laying around the studio. So I kind of lost track of the number of spools of filament. Some of them changed color partway through because I ran out of black. This piece here actually was like 4 or 5 different colors, and I've gone ahead and primed and painted it just so that it doesn't look quite so crazy for the video. But what all these parts are some custom design pieces that I've been working on for the last several weeks that should assemble together and make me a new spray booth for my airbrush setup, which is up there. And we'll jump over there in just a minute and clear all that stuff out of the way. And I'll tell you a little bit about why I want to replace my old spray booth. I've had it for several years and it works fine. But there are some things I would like to improve about it. And so I think I can do that by building my own. I'm not sure that anybody's ever 3D printed a spray booth before. I'm doing this because it was easy to kind of prototype some parts, and I can print replacements if I decide that I need to change the design a little bit as we go along. You'll see kind of my build process for not only building model kits, but also building physical things like this is really iterative, right? I like to actually see and feel the finished product as I go along before I make decisions about the final finishing touches and that sort of thing. So this is the prototype for now. Hopefully it's a usable prototype, right? I want to build this thing and actually have it work. And by work, I mean it exhausts the air and the fumes away from me, so I'm not breathing them in and out my window. That's the main thing that a spray booth should do. And then in probably future videos and over time as I use this thing, I'll probably make some other adjustments and add some other nice to have features like LED lighting and some power control and some other stuff to it as well. But for today, the plan is to assemble these parts and to see if we can get the airflow path, the exhaust of our fumes and the filtration of our paint particles all done and working to a level that I'm happy with, then using this for my next several projects and then kind of making adjustments to it as I go along in the future. So yeah, these are all the parts. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this should be all the parts. We're gonna go up to where the spray booth is. I'm gonna clean that off of the table so that we have a space to work to put these together, and then we'll assemble this thing and see how it works. Okay, so here we are over in the corner of the studio where the spray booth lives, and there's actually a window right there behind those gray curtains, so that's where all the air vents out. So this is the old spray booth, and before I take it out of here so that we can build the new one, let me talk about just a little bit the things that I wish I could improve about this and that I hope my new design does improve. So the first thing I really like about this, and this is not just for this spray booth design, I've seen many spray booths that use this idea, is that it has a slot where you can just put in a regular furnace filter, right? So these are super cheap. At my local home improvement store, I can buy them in like 5 packs or 10 packs or whatever for not very much money. And that way I can be swapping them out a lot of, fairly often whenever they get clogged up with paint particles. That makes it real easy. So my new design is going to incorporate that idea for sure. The 2 things that I wish I could improve about this, first of all, I don't know if you noticed when I pulled that filter out, but it sits at a very steep angle. So the area that you're spraying into in this booth is very low and kind of far back, and it's got this big overhang that sticks out over the top of it. So the practical problem that I have with that is if I'm trying to take video, shoot video, or do live streaming or anything like that of my work here in this space, it becomes really hard. You can see I've got a camera here. It's got an okay angle down into the booth, but it's not great. I've also added my own lighting as well. So I've got this light that's here. And this stuff, I'm always banging my forehead into it when I'm working down over the top of the booth, just because there's not a lot of space. So I'm hoping that with my new design, I have more vertical space above the spray booth so that I can put some lighting and the camera angle and whatever more straight down from the top instead of having to look down underneath this big metal piece. And I think that that should give me better angles for video and just make it a whole lot easier to work in the space and not feel like this lighting and video camera and stuff are always in my way. So that's the one thing. The second thing, and I'll actually sit down here and show you kind of how I spray. And maybe this is just my airbrush technique and you're different, but for me, because I'm right-handed, if I'm holding a part and I'm spraying like this, I'm never spraying straight ahead. I'm always spraying kind of at an angle, almost a 45-degree angle from my right to my left. And so rather than spraying straight into the filter, which I think is what the booth is, wanting you to do, I end up spraying more toward this back corner over here on the side. And so I get a lot of overspray onto this vertical piece right here and also onto the workbench because there's nothing blocking that spray over on this side. So I'm always cleaning this space up because it always has a lot of overspray on it. And I feel like, my new design should incorporate that idea that I don't spray straight ahead. I spray this way at an angle, almost a 45-degree angle, like I said, over here to my left. So the spray zone, kind of the area that you should be aiming for in the new spray booth is going to be more over here in this corner rather than straight ahead in front of me, if that makes sense. And you'll see more of how that works when we start to put together the new one. Now, there are a couple of pieces that I want to reuse from this spray booth, and actually I may take it apart and use some of the electronics inside in future updates to the new spray booth, but for now, the two pieces that we're going to use are this vent fan. So this thing used to be mounted underneath the workbench here, and it was taking a combined exhaust flow of the spray booth and my resin printer. I had an enclosure around the resin printer that had a hose coming out of it as well. Those were coming together in a T-joint, and then this was on the other side of the T-joint to keep the air flowing straight out the window. I don't need that combined flow anymore. I've gotten a different resin printer and it has its own filtration and exhaust system built in. And so I don't need this anymore under the workbench where it was. So I've taken it away from the workbench and I'm going to disassemble, remove these two outer pieces and just keep the fan part that's in the middle. And we're going to use this as the main exhaust solution for the new spray booth. So that way I don't have to buy something new. I'd always rather use something I already have than buy a new piece. And so we're going to do that. And then the other thing we're going to use is this piece of plexiglass. So I got this quite some time ago. You can tell it's really dirty, but the reason for putting this on the base of my old spray booth is because it's super easy to clean this, right? I just put paint thinner over the top of it and clean it all off with a rag, and it comes out looking really shiny and new again. And so that way, when I have overspray on the floor of my spray booth, it's really easy to clean that up. So we're gonna actually use this piece of plexiglass as the floor of the new spray booth. It's just gonna sit here on the workbench, and then we're gonna build everything else around the outside of it. So yeah, for this piece and for the fan, before we go and use them again, I'm gonna give them a good cleaning. So I'm gonna take them out to the garage, clean them down so that they're as good as new as I can make them. And then I'm going to move this stuff out of the way and we'll get to assembling the new spray booth in its place. All right, I think we're ready to go and get this thing assembled. So I have still all the parts down here on the floor where we started the video. I'll grab those as needed. I've grabbed myself some tools up here. I've got a rubber mallet because some of these things are going to fit pretty tightly on purpose. They were designed that way. So we may have to pound a bit to get them to fit together. I've got some duct tape because I know for sure that some of the places where there are seams, there's going to be air leaks, and I want to just seal those at least for now with duct tape. A future iteration on this design can help solve some of that, but I made some concessions when I was designing this the first time and didn't think about how I was going to seal up some of the spots. So we'll just do that with duct tape for now. I've got an extension cord so we can plug the exhaust fan in when it comes time to do that and try it out. So yeah, I think I've got everything, and the plan here is to do this assembly without me having to stop and go off camera to go and grab a tool or something else that I've forgotten. Hopefully I've got everything. We'll see. We'll see if it works out this way. So we're going to start with the little base piece. Unfortunately, this didn't clean quite as much as I had hoped it would, but it's okay for now. And we're just going to put it here on the workbench to be our base. And the design of this thing is such that I could pull this out and replace, either replace it or clean it and put it back if I can manage to get it even cleaner later on. So I'm not worried about it being a little bit dirty right now. Also, I'm not sure, like you can see this you can see the top of the workbench through this thing, right? I'm not sure if I want that surface being what I see when I'm spraying. I might just want like a plain black or a plain white background. And if that's the case, I'll just grab a thin piece of poster board of some color and put it underneath this. And I can always do that in the future as well. All right, so the next pieces are these two pieces here. And this forms what I'm calling the air chamber. So the idea is this will form a 90-degree angle at the back left corner of the spray booth here. Again, remember when I sit here and spray, I want to be spraying over here, and I want this to be kind of the area that I'm targeting, where most of the filtration and suction of fumes and stuff happens. So what we're going to do is just press these together. Make sure they get pressed together nice and tightly down here at the bottom as well. All right, that seems good. And then this back edge here is one of the places where I did not design any kind of overlapping feature to help with sealing up the airflow. So I'm going to just grab real quick here a piece of this duct tape, maybe a little bit longer, and we'll tape up the back of this and just kind of go over the top and over onto the other side. So hold these together. That was good. Never let the tape touch itself. We've done it. I should have probably recruited an assistant to help put things in place while I do this. But there we go. All right. So we've got this. And now I can kind of explain the idea here, right? This is going to sit here. It's going to be our air chamber. We're going to put our exhaust fan over here to this side of it. So the air is going to pull back and through and then around the corner and through our fan and then out the window. So let's get the base for our fan, which are these two parts right here. And these slot together and they have a little raised area here. So this part sits on the table and then this area here that's a little bit higher should sit up on top of this plexiglass piece. So we just do like this. Push them in like that, and then this one sits right here. Perfect, and I even got the width right. This edge is working over there. So again, we have a little area in the back here where there's going to need to be a piece of tape. But we're going to wait until we get the top on there for that to happen. So here's our fan, all cleaned up, and this is the point of the video where I have to give the disclaimer. And if you've watched anybody ever build their own spray booth, you'll probably hear this disclaimer. But it's important, so don't ignore it and definitely keep it in mind if you're going to build something like this yourself. This fan, the motor of the fan is in the airflow, right? So the motor just sits right here in the middle of the fan. There is a potential danger when you have that kind of a setup and you're exhausting, things that might have potentially flammable fumes or particles in it, which paint does, right? It especially would be bad if I was planning to do like aerosol spray paint in here, which I'm not. But there still is some level of risk that the motor could spark, and if the motor sparks and happens to catch some, flammable particle that's in the airflow, it could potentially cause a little explosion that comes back up and into your face. So there is some danger. It's pretty low. I've done some research and thinking about how my airflow works and whether I'm okay with that level of low risk, and I am. But definitely keep that in mind if you're going to do something like this, that there is potentially danger with this type of a setup, and you can get vent fans, exhaust fans who have the motor designed to be outside of the airflow, and that would be definitely a safer option for sure. Anyway, this thing slots nicely into these two little grooves that I've created here, and that looks pretty good. And then you'll see, like, if I show you the other pieces here, the way this is set up, this piece is going to go on the top here, right? So this is set up to sort of go from this rectangular opening, which is going to be here at the end of our air chamber, and merge it up into the circular shape that is the inlet of the fan. And on the other side, we've got the exhaust of the fan going down to the smaller diameter circle that will work for our little vent pipe that we have that's going out the window. So these are probably the most complicated parts of this whole thing. It is overall pretty simple though. So what's going to happen here is we're just going to push this down over the top of this. And this is where it's going to get a little bit tricky, because that needs to go all the way down there, and the fit is very tight. So we're going to pound on this thing. Very nice. All right, that worked excellently well. And we're going to do the same thing over here. If it turns out this pounding is too loud on the audio, I'll try to adjust it in post so that it does not kill your eardrums. Here we go. Oh no, I forgot something. So in my rush, this piece actually slots in the other side here to be our vent outlet. So let me see if we can get the correct leverage to pull this apart. Yeah, I should be able to. It's not pressed down all the way yet. All right, it is pretty tight. I'm gonna have to go get a tool to pry this apart. I'll be back after I get this disassembled so then we can assemble it the right way. All right, we're back. And if you're curious, the right tool turned out to be just a hammer, and I used the claw on the back of it to reach in here and pry that thing up. So that is now loose again. And so we'll realign this bit here. Very good. And now, before I put that top piece on, I need to put this in the slot here. Yeah, and press that down, because that's going to be the place where we attach our exhaust onto, right? So, now we can realign this thing. Yep, that's looking good. All right. I think that's all we need this hammer for. So, what's next? We've got our filtration system here. And our filtration system is just these two square, so these are 1 foot square air filters, furnace filters. Yeah, and they just slot down straight into here. Just like so. Now you might be wondering why they're taller than this air chamber piece. There's a good reason for that. It's actually quite a simple reason. The reason is that the build volume of my printer is 350 millimeters cubed. And that's pretty big, but it wasn't going to be big enough to print these parts. So this was as tall as I could print this. And so the lid, which is over here, has the additional height that we need to fit over the top of this and fill in that space. So rather than the lid just being like this high and being on top, I made it a little higher so that it could come down to there to fill in that space. So I'm going to leave the lid over there for a second because the back side of this definitely needs some sealing up with tape. If I can get this thing turned around so you can see it. This gap right here is definitely going to need to be taped. And this is something where in the future I could definitely design like a little flange piece into the back here with some bits that even screw or magnet together. I just didn't think to do that in this initial version. of the design. That's what you get with my like fly by the seat of your pants iterative type of design process. I do what I think makes sense at the time, and then sometimes I later realize that I should have thought a little bit harder about certain issues that might arise. So this is fine. We will do it this way for now. And I'm gonna just cut a slit down this way. Yeah, and wrap that over the top like that. All right, so that should be pretty good now. Let's... So you can see this whole design is actually fairly easy to move around. It's not designed, or nor do I think it is close to being portable. But it is fairly simple to move around. So let's put the lid on. I think I mentioned earlier, this lid, I've primed and painted it, mostly because the colors of filament that got used for this one, it was kind of the last bit to print for the whole piece. I was out of black filament at the time, and so this used up a bunch of extra rolls of spools of PLA that I just had little bits on the end of. And so it was about 5 or 6 different colors, and it looked kind of ugly. So I figured I would paint it up for 2 reasons. One, to make it look better for the video here, and then secondly, because I'm thinking that I might do this treatment with the white paint to the entire piece at some point. So I wanted to kind of see what it would look like. Nothing else in my studio is white. Most of the 3D printed things that I printed for sure are black, and a lot of the other tools and things that I have are black. But I think having a white background to work against for spraying, for airbrushing, might actually be good because I could see better, and also if I shoot video of things, that should come out better as well. All right, at the end of this exhaust fan is a little speed controller. This came with the fan, and so someday, in a future version of this spray booth, I will probably figure out how to mount this fan controller like up here somewhere above the fan so that this little control dial will be accessible to me from the front here. But for now, we're just going to leave it plugged in down here. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this on low. So I don't know if you can hear that or not. It's fairly quiet. I can feel the exhaust coming out over there. I can feel a decent amount of suction there. I'll turn it all the way up as high as it goes. Yeah, that actually seems pretty good. So let's go ahead and put our exhaust tube hose on here and screw this down. Good, that's nice and solid, it's not going anywhere. Nice. Now, eventually, and probably pretty soon, I think I'm going to need some kind of a lid over the top of this, at least over this part of it, right? If I'm spraying into here, I don't want fumes necessarily escaping up. I'm not sure that I have enough suction to be able to handle that amount of volume, assuming that the air over the top is also sort of available for the fumes to head that way. So I'll probably build some kind of a little lid to go over the top right here. For now, I don't have that. However, if I go turn on my compressor, hold on, I'll be right back. All right, so there's the compressor on. Yep. And let's just try something here. So down at the lowest setting, I'm about to spray some lacquer thinner, which smells terrible, and normally I would wear my breathing mask if I'm spraying this stuff, but for the purposes of this video, let's just do it this way. I'm going to spray this and see how the suction is, mostly by whether I can smell the fumes or not. Yeah, so I can see it definitely going that way. I don't know if the video's picking that up or not. And that's at low fan, so let's turn it up as high as the fan will go. There we go. Yeah, you know, maybe the lid isn't needed, actually. Because I'm not seeing a lot escape upward, and I'm definitely seeing if I spray this way, which is, again, what I said earlier, I don't spray straight ahead. But if I do, I see it curving over that way. And I definitely feel the suction up through these filters. So that is great news. I'm not feeling any air leaks, really at all. Excellent. I'm feeling a small one right here, kind of at the top of this lid, but it's not bad. And I'm feeling a little one right here in this gap as well, which again I could seal up with tape, but it's very small, so I'm not overly concerned. Most of the air is definitely going out the vent, and if I look out the window, I can actually see there's some bushes out there, and they're definitely moving, so they're feeling the air for sure out there. Cool. So yeah, this is the version 1, let's say, the first prototype of my new spray booth. There's a little ridge right here. This is meant to have a triangular little wing piece that comes down. That's purely decorative, well, and a little bit to help with overspray, but I decided not to print that because I just didn't want to take the time to do that here, and it's not really a functional part of the airflow system, which was the idea today, was to test that out. So that piece is done, and then eventually, like I said, I'll probably design some additional thing here that's got the fan control built into it, and also potentially a couple of switches. I'd like to be able to control the power to my compressor from up here on a switch so that I don't have to climb under the workbench like I just did a few minutes ago to have to turn that on. And I'll also probably build some LED lights, probably a lid of some kind here with some LED lights in it, and have another switch there to control those as well. There's a good chance that I'll take those toggle switches off of the old spray booth and just repurpose those for use in that way there to control lights and stuff, and then something to just fill this in, because just for aesthetic purposes, that way you're not seeing the fan there. Yeah, this is pretty good. I'm happy with it so far. The goal with this, for at least for now, was to get this into a workable state so I can use it for a few projects, and then sort of figure out over time what I like, what I don't like about it, and then iterate on it from there and make a few little changes here and there until I get something that I'm super happy with. So at some point in the future, there will almost certainly be more videos on the channel with regards to other additional versions and tweaks on this design. And at some point as well, not yet, but at some point in the future, when I'm happy with the design itself, I'll release the STLs over at my profile at printables.com. So those won't be there if you're watching this right when this video comes out, but maybe a couple of months down the road, there's a good chance those will be here as well, and you can print those out and build your own version of this if you're interested in doing so. Keeping in mind, of course, that it's going to be pretty specifically sized for this particular fan that I happen to have. And I'll see if I can figure out where I bought this fan. It's been several years ago, so if I can find a link to exactly this fan, or I can take measurements and give you dimensions so that you can be sure that maybe you're getting something that fits in there if you're trying to build this same thing. But anyway, all of that will be coming in the future. For now, I'm going to go use this on a few projects, and like I said, see what I like, what I don't like about it, and then make little tweaks to it here and there to kind of fix it up and make it into a final finished product. Yeah, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you've watched this far, thanks for sticking around. Let me know what you think of the design, of the idea of kind of spraying off to a corner rather than straight ahead. I think for me that's going to work great. But again, we'll have to see it in practice and decide if that's really the case or not. Yeah, so let me know what you think of the design. If you have any suggestions or things that you would do differently, or ways that I could potentially improve this, let me know that too, because like I said, this is a work in progress. I'm going to be probably tweaking it over the next several months before I land on the final solution. However, I think even right now, just with that little bit of testing we did, it's definitely already better than my other airbrush. I can put the lighting and camera and stuff back over here so that I can shoot some video footage of myself working at the spray booth. And it definitely seems more open and easy to work in without, I don't think, making any appreciable difference as far as the amount of extraction that it's able to do. It was pulling that lacquer thinner out pretty well, and the smell is completely gone at this point, or was by the time I turned the fan off, which was a few minutes ago at this point. So yeah, so thanks for watching. All that's left for me to say is I will see you in the next one, and happy building.